Moving on, a huge storm system which ravaged Alaska with hurricane-force winds is now driving frigid air and snow toward the continental U.S. Winter weather is forecast to roll south and east in the next few days, bringing bone-chilling temperatures to more than 200 million people. Climatologist Mark Seeley is the author of the Minnesota Weather Almanac, and he's widely regarded as Minnesota's weather historian and teaches at the University of Minnesota. And he joins us from St. Paul. It's good to see you, Mark. Thanks so much for being here with us.
You're welcome. It's good to be with you today.
So what do we make of the fact that this polar vortex and this huge mass of very frigid air coming through such a large portion of the United States so early in the season means? What does this mean for us?
Well, there's no real historical correlation. These cases have happened in the past. In fact, we had this happen to us back in 2010. Almost on the same date, just a date or two off. And we've occasionally had this happen to us across time with dramatic consequence. For example, today is the date of the famous Edmund Fitzgerald storm back in 1975 that sank the Edmund Fitzgerald on Lake Superior with the loss of all crew. So we have had these spells in the past. It's a bit of a shock because, quite frankly, we had such a lovely fall season. The fall season here in the Great Lakes region of the country was a very, very nice season indeed. Mm-hmm. And so it's a little bit of a slap in the face to have it end so abruptly.
Indeed, and sort of walk us through how this storm system is going to march. It has already started, but march across the United States this week.
Well, it's kind of a slow progression. We've been getting snow all day since about 4 o'clock this morning here in the Twin Cities, albeit highly variable. Some of the southern parts of the Twin Cities have had 3 to 5 inches, but northern parts have had up to 12 inches, and even north of that has been up to 16 and 17 inches. But it's gradually going to get to the east of us by Tuesday, by tomorrow, and then the cold air mass from high latitude up in Canada is going to settle in, and as you already alluded to in your headlines, that cold air mass is going to dominate much of the eastern half of the state, driving temperatures to 20 to 30 degrees colder than normal for this time of year, which for us puts us down into the single digits and perhaps even some below zero readings later this week.
Is this a sign of things to come, Mark? Is this going to be a long, awful winter?
I don't think so. It may be an erratic winter with a lot of up and downs. I don't necessarily think it's going to be a sign of a prolonged cold and snowy winter because we haven't seen that correlation play out in the past. But certainly it's indicative that we will be up and down a lot. We'll be on the so-called roller coaster ride this winter, perhaps, with sharp deviations of cooler than normal air settling in, and then perhaps, and hopefully so, we'll go the other way and maybe climb back up to 40 or 50 degrees yet this month.
Mark, are you convinced in your mind that this in fact is a polar vortex? I've read some today that some are disputing it, saying this is not the polar vortex.
Yes, meteorological speaking, the polar vortex was defined in the 1850s, and it is a feature of the northern hemisphere, but it comes into play much more in December and January in terms of establishing the circulation up over Baffin Island in Arctic Canada. And we haven't yet seen that fully established. So I think what we're getting here is simply more properly phrased as a polar outbreak, because as was the case in the news media, you know, this was all born, this storm system was all born out of Typhoon Nuri out in the western Pacific about 2 weeks ago. And it climbed up into the northern Pacific. It merged with the low pressure system up there, affected Alaska, and now it's going to drag down polar latitude air over the central and eastern U.S. And so it's really probably more properly described in that context rather than attributing it to the polar vortex.
Okay, well, no matter what you call it, it sure is cold.
Yes, it's going to take an adjustment, that's for sure.
Indeed. Mark Seeley, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.